The police officer looked at me with pity in his eyes and said, "Mr. Coleman, I am sorry, but your daughter took her own life." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Officer, you have the wrong house. I have only one child, a son named Daniel, and he is very much alive." The officer shook his head and handed me a plastic bag containing a cheap burner phone and a silver cross necklace. He said, "She had your number saved as Dad." It was the only number in the phone. When they pulled back the sheet at the morgue, my legs gave out. It was not my daughter, but looking at her dead face broke my heart more than if it had been my own flesh and blood, because the woman lying on that cold steel table was supposed to be dead 5 years ago. And looking at the bruise on her neck, I knew one thing for certain. She did not kill herself. I am Isaiah Coleman, but everyone calls me Zay. I am 73 years old, and I spent 40 of those years working the shipyards in Charleston. I know the sound of trouble. Trouble does not ring the doorbell at 2 in the morning. Trouble pounds on the wood like it is trying to break it down. When I heard that banging, I did not reach for my glasses. I reached for the Louisville Slugger I keep next to my bed. My wife, Rose, passed away 6 years ago, and since then, I sleep with one eye open. I made my way down the hallway, my joints popping with every step. The red and blue lights were flashing to the front window, painting my living room in violent colors. I opened the door chain just an inch. 2 officers stood there. One was young, white, and looked like he had barely started shaving. The other was older, looking tired and worn down by the job. The young one spoke first. "Mr. Isaiah Coleman?" "Yes," I said, gripping the bat tighter behind the door. "Sir, we need you to come with us. It is about your daughter." I frowned. "I told you I did not have a daughter. My son, Daniel, lives in a gated community across town. If something happened to him, why are you here and not at his place?" The older officer stepped forward. "Sir, the ID on the deceased says Maya Coleman. The emergency contact is you. She was found in a motel room on the west side. Apparent suicide." The name hit me like a physical blow. Maya. The bat slipped from my hand and clattered onto the floor. Maya. It could not be. Maya was the little girl who grew up next door. The girl who used to sit on my porch and let Rose braid her hair because her own mother was too high to care. Maya, who dated my son Daniel for 10 years before he left her for a rich councilwoman's daughter. Maya, who disappeared 5 years ago without saying goodbye. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I sat in the back of the police cruiser, watching the city pass by. It was raining, a cold, hard rain that washed the trash into the gutters but could not wash away the grime of the city. I tried to call Daniel. His phone went straight to voicemail. Of course it did. He was probably sleeping in silk sheets next to his perfect wife, Vivian, dreaming of stock portfolios and yacht clubs. He had forgotten Maya long ago, but I never did. The county morgue is a place that smells of chemicals and hopelessness. It is cold, not just the temperature, but the feeling in the air. It seeps into your bones. The medical examiner was a short man with thick glasses who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. He led me to a table in the center of the room. He looked at his clipboard. Jane Doe, identified tentatively as Maya Coleman. The cause of death appears to be an overdose of sleeping pills. We found an empty bottle next to bed. He reached out and pulled down the zipper of the body bag. The sound was like a scream in the quiet room. Then he pulled back the sheet. I had to grab the edge of the table to keep from falling. It was her. It was really her. She looked older than I remembered. Her face was thin, gaunt. Her skin, which used to glow like warm honey, was now gray and dull. Her hair was chopped short and rough. But it was Maya. I would know that face anywhere. She had a small scar above her left eyebrow from when she fell off a bicycle when she was 7, and I patched her up because she was too scared to go home. "Is this your daughter?" the officer asked softly. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "In every way that matters. Yes, she is my daughter." I reached out to touch her hand. Her fingers were cold, ice cold. I remembered how warm her hands used to be when she would bring me a cup of coffee on the porch and listen to my stories about the war. She was the only one who listened. Daniel always said my stories were boring. Maya would listen for hours. "Why did you leave, child?" I whispered. "Why did you run away?" The medical examiner sighed loudly, checking his watch. "Sir, if you have made a positive ID, we can wrap this up. It is an open and shut case. Junkie in a cheap motel. Happens every night in this city." I felt a flash of anger, hot and sharp. Do not call her that. She was a good girl. She went to church every Sunday. She sang in the choir. The examiner shrugged. People change. The toxicology report will confirm it. But the scene was clear. No signs of struggle. She took the pills and went to sleep. I looked at her again. Really looked at her. My eyes might be old, but they are sharp. I spent years inspecting cargo containers for damage. I noticed things other people miss. I looked at her neck. There, under the collar of the cheap hospital gown they had put on her, was a mark. It was faint, a reddish-purple bruise right over her windpipe. It was small, roughly the size of a thumb. "Wait," I said. "What is that?" I pointed to the bruise. The medical examiner glanced at it dismissively. Post-mortem lividity. Or maybe she bumped into something before she lay down. "It is nothing." "It is not nothing," I said, my voice rising. "That is a bruise." Someone grabbed her. The young officer stepped in. "Mr. Coleman, you are upset. We understand, but there is no evidence of foul play." The door was locked from the inside. I looked at Maya's face one last time, and then I saw the silver cross necklace the officer had given me earlier. It was in the bag on the counter. I picked it up. It was cheap metal, but I recognized it. I had given it to her for her 16th birthday. She had cried and told me it was the most beautiful thing she had ever owned. She told me she would never take it off because it reminded her that God was watching. Maya was a believer, a true believer. She believed that suicide was a mortal sin. She believed that no matter how hard life got, God had a plan. Even when Daniel broke her heart, even when she lost her job, even when her mother died of an overdose, Maya never stopped praying. "She did not do this," I said firmly. I turned to the officers. "This woman did not kill herself. She was murdered." The room went silent. The medical examiner looked at the police officer and rolled his eyes. "Mr. Coleman," the officer said, his tone losing its pity and becoming annoyed. "We know it is hard to accept, but facts are facts." I looked at the bruise again. It was not just a bruise. It was a fingerprint. Someone had pressed their thumb into her throat. Maybe not to strangle her, but to force her to open her mouth, to force the pills down. I leaned in closer to her face, and that is when I saw it, a tiny detail. Under her fingernails, on her right hand, there was something dark, a tiny speck of skin or fabric. She had fought back. I pointed it out. "Look under her nails." The medical examiner sighed and took a magnifying glass. He looked for a second, then pulled back. "Just dirt. Look, sir, we are done here. You can make arrangements with a funeral home to pick up the body in the morning." They were dismissing me, just another old black man in a city full of dead bodies. To them, Maya was a statistic, another addict who gave up. They wanted to close the file and go home to their warm beds. But I could not leave her. Not again. I had let her go 5 years ago. I had let Daniel push her away because I thought he needed to focus on his career. I had stayed silent when he married Vivian because I thought it would give him a better life. My silence had cost Maya everything. I put my hand on her cold forehead. "I promise you, child," I whispered, "I will not let them bury the truth with you." As I walked out of the morgue, the sun was starting to come up over the city. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet and gray. I took the bag with her belongings, the cheap phone, the cross necklace, the keys. I sat on the bench outside the morgue and took out her phone. It was a burner phone, the kind you buy at a convenience store for $20. The battery was almost dead. I pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life. It was locked, of course, But Maya was a creature of habit. I tried her birthday. Incorrect. I tried Daniel's birthday. Incorrect. Then I thought about the one date that meant something to both of us. The day Rose died. Maya had held my hand through the entire funeral. I typed in the numbers. 0814. The phone unlocked. My heart hammered in my chest. I went straight to the photos. There were no selfies, no pictures of sunsets or food. There was only one album, and inside it was a video recorded just 2 hours before the police said she died. I pressed play. Maya's face filled the small cracked screen. She was crying. She looked terrified. She was whispering as if someone was in the next room. "Zay," she whispered, "if you are seeing this, it means I am gone. I am so sorry I stayed away. I had to." She threatened to kill him. Kill him? Who was him? The camera shook. Maya looked over her shoulder, then back at the lens. "I have hidden him, Zay. He is safe for now, but you have to find him before she does. The key to the locker is in my shoe. Please, Zay. He has your eyes. He has Daniel's eyes." The video ended. I sat there on the cold bench, my breath coming in short gasps. He has Daniel's eyes. Maya did not just leave. She ran, and she did not run alone. I looked in the plastic bag again. I dumped everything out. The cross, the phone, and a single dirty sneaker. The police must have missed the other one or left it in the room. I grabbed the shoe and ripped out the sole. There it was, a small rusty key with a number stamped on it. 42. I stood up. The pain in my knees was gone. The exhaustion was gone. All I felt was a fire burning in my chest, a fire that had been out for a long time. I am not just a retired shipyard worker. I am a father, and now it seems I am a grandfather. The police said the case was closed. I say the war has just begun. The address the police gave me was in a part of town where taxi drivers refuse to go after dark and streetlights are just decoration because the bulbs have been shot out long ago. I drove my old pickup truck, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. It was not fear. It was rage, a cold, hard rage that sat in my gut like a stone. The police had handed me a plastic bag with a few cheap items and told me to go home. They said the case was closed. They said there was nothing left to see at the scene, but I knew better. In 40 years at the shipyards, I learned that the most important things are always hidden in the corners that nobody wants to look at. I parked in front of the building. It was a crumbling brick structure that smelled of damp concrete and neglect. The front door had no lock, just a gaping hole where the handle used to be. I walked up the stairs to the 4th floor. The hallway smelled of boiled cabbage and old cigarettes. I found apartment 402. The police seal was a joke, just a single strip of yellow tape stuck lazily across the door frame. The door itself was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The air in the room was stale and heavy. It smelled of fear. The police report said suicide. They said she took pills and went to sleep. But looking around this room, I knew that was a lie. You do not tear your own house apart before you kill yourself. The place had been tossed, and I do not mean just messy. I mean searched systematically, brutally. The mattress was slashed open, its stuffing spilling out like guts. The drawers were pulled out and dumped on the floor. The cheap drywall had holes punched in it. Someone had been looking for something, and they had been angry that they could not find it. I stepped over a pile of shattered plates. My boots crunched on the glass. I tried to imagine Maya in this place. The last time I saw her, she was wearing a bright yellow dress, laughing at a barbecue in my backyard. Now she was gone, and this broken room was all that was left of her life. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I should have checked on her. I should have found her sooner. I walked to the small kitchenette. The cupboard doors were ripped off their hinges. A box of cereal was spilled across the counter. And then I saw it, a small detail the police missed because they did not care. On the linoleum floor near the refrigerator, there was a smear of dried mud. It was shaped like a boot print, a large, heavy boot. Maya wore size 6 sneakers. This print was at least a size 12. Men with size 12 boots had been here, men who did not care about noise or damage. I moved into the bedroom. This was where they found her. The bed was stripped bare. I looked at the nightstand. There was a Bible. I picked it up. It was old and worn, the cover held together with tape. I opened it. On the inside cover in her handwriting, it said, "For when the darkness comes, trust in the light." I put the Bible in my pocket. That was when I heard it. It was a sound so faint I almost missed it. A scratch, like a mouse in the walls. I froze. I held my breath. The silence in the room was heavy. Then I heard it again, a soft whimper. It was coming from the closet. The closet door was closed, but the wood was splintered around the handle, as if someone had tried to force it and failed. Or maybe they just did not try hard enough. I stepped closer. My hand went to the pocket where I kept my folding knife. "Is anyone there?" I called out. My voice sounded loud and harsh in the empty room. No answer, just a sudden silence that was even louder than the noise. I reached out and gripped the handle. It was stuck. I pulled harder, putting my shoulder into it. The wood groaned and gave way. The door swung open. The closet was full of old coats and boxes. At first, I saw nothing, just shadows and dust. I was about to turn away, thinking my old ears were playing tricks on me. But then I saw a movement near the floor, behind a stack of plastic bins. Something shifted. I knelt down, my knees protesting with a loud pop. I moved the coats aside, and there he was, a little boy. He could not be more than 4 years old. He was curled up into a ball so tight, he looked like a bundle of rags. He was wearing pajamas with cartoon rocket ships on them, but they were covered in dust. He was shaking, not just shivering, but shaking violently, his whole body vibrating with terror. He looked up at me, and I felt the air leave my lungs. He did not scream. He did not cry. He just stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. He had his hands clamped over his mouth, as if someone had taught him exactly how to be quiet, as if his life depended on silence. "Hey there, little man," I whispered, making my voice as soft as I could. "I am not going to hurt you." He pressed himself further back into the corner, trying to merge with the wall. He looked at my hand, checking for a weapon. This was a child who knew what violence looked like. That broke my heart more than seeing Maya on the slab. I sat down on the floor, right there in the dust. I kept my distance. "I am Zay," I said. "I was a friend of Maya. I knew your mom." At the mention of her name, his eyes filled with tears, but he still did not make a sound. He pointed a trembling finger toward the bed where his mother had died. "Yes," I said, swallowing a lump in my throat. "I know. I am so sorry. But the bad men are gone now. It is just me." I remembered I had a peppermint candy in my pocket. I always keep them for when my blood sugar drops. I took it out and unwrapped it slowly, letting him see my hands were empty of anything dangerous. I slid the candy across the floor toward him. He looked at the candy, then back at me. Hunger won over fear. He snatched the candy and put it in his mouth. "What is your name, son?" I asked. He chewed for a moment, then whispered so quietly I had to lean in to hear. "Elijah." "Elijah," I repeated. "That is a strong name, like a prophet. Come on, Elijah. We cannot stay here. It is not safe." He hesitated. He looked at the open door of the apartment, as if he expected monsters to come walking in. And maybe they would. Whoever killed Maya did not find what they were looking for. And suddenly I realized with a sick feeling in my stomach, what they were looking for was not a thing. It was him. They did not tear the room apart for money. They tore it apart looking for the boy. Maya did not just die. She died protecting him. She must have hidden him in the closet and locked it or blocked it somehow before they got to her. She gave her life to buy him silence. "Come here, Elijah," I said more urgently. "We have to go now." He crawled out from behind the boxes. As he moved into the light coming from the window, I saw his face clearly for the first time. The shadows fell away, and I found myself staring at a ghost. I stopped breathing. The room spun. It was not just that he was a handsome boy. It was the shape of his nose, the set of his jaw, and above all, it was his eyes. They were a distinctive shade of amber brown, with flecks of gold. Not Maya's eyes. Not my eyes. They were Daniel's eyes. I would know those eyes anywhere. I looked into them the day Daniel was born. I looked into them when he graduated college. I looked into them when he lied to me about his gambling debts. This boy, this terrified little boy hiding in a closet in a crack den, he was my grandson. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Maya had been raising my grandson alone in poverty, while Daniel lived in a mansion 20 miles away. Did Daniel know? Did he abandon him? Or did Maya hide the boy from him too? Elijah looked up at me, waiting for me to do something. He reached out and grabbed my pinky finger with his small hand. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Are you a bad man?" he asked. Tears pricked my eyes. I had been called many things in my life. Stubborn, hard, difficult. But looking at this boy, I knew I had a new title. Protector. "No, Elijah," I said, picking him up. He was light, too light. I could feel his ribs through his pajamas. "I am not a bad man. I am your grandfather, and nobody is ever going to hurt you again." I stood up, holding him against my chest. He smelled of dust and old fear, but under that was the smell of a child, just innocent and sweet. He buried his face in my neck, and for the first time since I walked in, he started to cry soft, quiet sobs that shook his small frame. I wrapped my coat around him, covering his face so nobody would see him as we left. I walked out of that apartment, and I did not look back. The police said it was suicide. The coroner said it was an overdose, but I knew the truth now. You do not hide a child in a closet if you plan to kill yourself. You hide a child because you know the wolves are at the door. Maya was murdered. She was murdered because of who this boy was. She was murdered because someone wanted to erase her and this child from the face of the earth. As I walked down the stairs, listening to the creak of the wood under my boots, I made a promise, not to God, not to the law, but to the ghost of the woman who died saving my blood. I promise you, Maya, I am going to burn their world down. I am going to find out who sent those men. I am going to find out what Daniel knows. And if my own son is involved in this, may God have mercy on him, because I will not. I reached the truck and strapped Elijah into the passenger seat, using the seat belt meant for a grown man. He looked small and lost. "Where are we going?" he asked, his voice trembling again. "We are going to ask some questions, Elijah, and we are going to get some answers." I started the engine. The old truck roared to life. I drove away from the building, watching it disappear in the rearview mirror. I had gone there looking for clues. I left with a war on my hands. But before I could even get to the main road, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A black SUV with tinted windows was parked down the street. As I passed it, the engine turned on. The headlights flared in the gloom. They were watching. They had been watching the apartment, waiting for someone to come back, waiting to see if the boy was still inside. And now they were following me. I gripped the steering wheel and pressed the gas pedal. "Hold on, Elijah," I said grimly. The hunt was on, but they did not know who they were messing with. They thought they were chasing an old man and a helpless child. They did not know they had just woken up a sleeping dragon. I drove from the crumbling brick tenement to the west side to the polished iron gates of Willowbrook Estates, and it felt like I was traveling between two different planets. I had left little Elijah with Samuel, an old army medic I trusted with my life. I told Samuel to keep the doors locked and the blinds drawn until I came back. I could not bring the boy here. Not yet. I was walking into the lion's den, and you do not bring a lamb when you go to face the predators. My son Daniel lives in a house that looks like something out of a magazine. It has white pillars and a driveway long enough to land a plane on. It is a place that screams money but whispers loneliness. The security guard at the gate hesitated when he saw my battered pickup truck. He picked up the phone, probably calling the house to ask if the old black man in the rusted Ford was actually allowed inside. The gate opened slowly, as if it was doing me a favor. I parked next to Daniel's silver Lexus. My truck looked like a dirty bruise on the pristine pavement. I took a deep breath. I checked my pocket to make sure the audio recorder I had bought at the pawn shop on the way over was turned on. I am old, but I am not stupid. In a war, words are weapons, and I intended to capture every bullet they fired. The front door was opened by a housekeeper who looked at me without smiling. She led me to the main living room. The ceilings were 20 feet high. The air conditioning was set so low it made the sweat on my back turn to ice. And there he was. Daniel stood by the fireplace. He was wearing a suit that cost more than I made in a year on the docks. He held a crystal tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He looked like success. He looked like the American dream. But when he turned to face me, I saw the truth. His eyes were red. His hands were shaking just enough to make the ice in his glass tinkle against the sides. He knew. Somehow he already knew. "Dad," he said, and his voice was thin and brittle like dry leaves. "What are you doing here? You should have called. Vivian is resting. She has a migraine." I stood there in my work boots, leaving faint, dusty footprints on his white marble floor. I looked at my son, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the boy I had taught to fish. Somewhere along the way, he had lost his spine. "I did not come to see your wife, Daniel," I said, keeping my voice low and steady. "I came to tell you about Maya." At the sound of her name, Daniel flinched. It was a small movement, like he had been stung by a bee. He took a large gulp of his drink. "Maya," he repeated, trying to sound casual, but failing miserably. "I have not heard that name in years. What about her? Did she ask you for money again? Because I told you, Dad, she is just trying to manipulate you." I walked closer to him. I wanted to smell the fear on him. "She is dead, Daniel." The glass slipped from his fingers. It did not fall in slow motion like in the movies. It fell fast and hard. It hit the marble floor and shattered into 1,000 diamond shards. The scotch splashed onto his expensive Italian leather shoes. Daniel stared at the broken glass. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His face went pale, turning a sickly shade of gray. "Dead," he whispered. "Yes," I said. "The police found her in a motel room. They say it was suicide." Daniel looked up at me, and for a second I saw genuine pain in his eyes. I saw the ghost of the boy who had once loved Maya before money and ambition destroyed his soul. He took a step toward me. "Suicide," he stammered. No, she would not. She promised me she would stay away. She promised she would keep quiet if I just... He stopped. He realized he had said too much. "If you just what, Daniel?" I asked, stepping on a piece of broken glass, grinding it into the floor. "If you just paid her off? If you just threatened her?" "I did not threaten her," he said, his voice rising in panic. "I just want to protect my family. You do not understand, Dad. Vivian..." Before he could finish, a voice cut through the air like a razor blade. "Daniel, darling, why is there broken glass on my floor?" I looked up toward the grand staircase. Vivian was descending. She did not walk. She glided. She was wearing a silk robe that looked like flowing water. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a perfect tight bun. She looked like an ice queen, cold, beautiful, and deadly. She reached the bottom of the stairs and looked at the mess on the floor, then at me. Her blue eyes had zero warmth. They were flat and hard like a shark's eyes. "Hello, Isaiah," she said. "To what do we owe the pleasure of this intrusion?" I looked at her, and I felt a chill run down my spine. This woman was dangerous. Daniel was weak, but Vivian was something else entirely. She was the daughter of a city councilwoman. She grew up knowing that rules were things that applied to other people. "I came to tell Daniel that Maya is dead," I said. Vivian did not blink. She did not gasp. She did not pretend to be shocked. She simply walked over the bar and poured herself a glass of water. "Is she indeed?" Vivian said calmly, "Well, I suppose that is tragic in a poetic sort of way." "Tragic?" I repeated, my blood starting to boil. "A young woman is dead. A woman who was part of this family before you ever showed up." Vivian laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Part of this family? Oh, Isaiah, you always were sentimental." She was a mistake from Daniel's past, a loose end that refused to be tied up. She turned to face us, leaning against the bar. She looked at Daniel, who was still staring at the floor, shaking. "Clean yourself up, Daniel," she snapped. "You look pathetic." Then she looked at me. "So she finally did it," she said. "I wondered how long it would last. We had been paying her $5,000 a month for 5 years to stay invisible. I suppose she finally realized that no amount of money fixes a broken spirit." I clenched my fists. My fingernails dug into my palms. You paid her to leave, I said. We paid her for silence, Vivian corrected. There's a difference. Your son has a reputation to maintain, Isaiah. My mother has a reputation. We could not have a drug addict ex-girlfriend surfacing every time Daniel closed a deal. She was not a drug addict. I shouted. My voice echoed off the high ceilings. She was a good woman, and she did not kill herself. Vivian's expression changed. The boredom vanished, replaced by something sharper, something like warning. Careful, Isaiah, she said softly. I stepped forward. I saw the bruises on her neck. I said, I saw the signs of a struggle. Someone made sure she took those pills. Someone wanted to close the account permanently. Vivian put her glass down. She walked up to me until she was just inches away. She smelled of expensive perfume and rot. Let me give you some advice, old man, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. You are an old man living on a pension that barely covers your heating bill. You have a nice, quiet life. Do not ruin it by playing detective. Are you threatening me? I asked. I am educating you, she smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. The police have closed the case. The coroner has signed the certificate. Maya is dead and buried. The debt is settled. If you go digging up graves, you might just fall into one yourself. She reached out and brushed a piece of lint off my old canvas jacket. Go home, Isaiah. Watch your baseball games. Drink your cheap beer. Forget Maya ever existed. It is better for everyone, especially for you. I looked at Daniel. He was looking at his wife with pure terror. He was not grieving for Maya anymore. He was terrified of Vivian. He was a hostage in his own home. I looked back at Vivian. You think money buys everything? I said, I know it does, she replied. Now get out of my house before I call security and have you dragged out for trespassing. I turned around and walked to the door. I wanted to smash everything in that room. I wanted to tear down their white pillars and their silk curtains, but I kept walking. As I reached the door, I stopped and looked back. You missed a spot, I said, pointing to the broken glass near Daniel's feet. I walked out into the heat of the afternoon. The heavy oak door slammed shut behind me. I got into my truck and sat there for a moment, my hands gripping the wheel. I was shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of being that close to pure evil. She admitted it. She admitted paying Maya. She admitted wanting her gone. And she threatened me. But she made one mistake, one fatal mistake. She did not mention the boy. She talked about closing the account. She talked about loose ends. But she never said a word about a child. This meant one of two things. Either she truly did not know Elijah existed, which seemed impossible given her resources, or she knew exactly who Elijah was, and she thought she had already taken care of him. 2. She thought the men she sent to the apartment had finished the job. She thought Elijah was dead or gone. I pulled the recorder out of my pocket and pressed stop. I had her voice. I had her threat. It was not enough to convict her of murder yet, but it was a start. I looked at the mansion one last time. It looked like a fortress, but every fortress has a crack in the wall. Vivian thought she had won. She thought she had scared the old man away. She did not know that the old man had nothing left to lose. I put the truck in gear. I had to get back to Elijah. I had to keep him safe, because as long as that boy was alive, Vivian's victory was a lie. And when she finds out he is still breathing, she is going to unleash hell. Good, I thought as I drove past the security gate. I had been through hell before. I know the terrain. Let them come. For one night, I allowed myself to believe that the hard part was over. I took Elijah back to my small house on Maple Street. It is not a mansion like the one Daniel lives in. The paint is 8:44 a.m., peeling on the porch, and the floorboards groan when you step on them. But it is a home. It is filled with the smell of old books and the lemon wax rose used to polish the furniture. I made Elijah a grilled cheese sandwich. He ate it like he had not seen food in days. Watching him eat, I felt a strange warmth in my chest that I had not felt since Daniel was a boy. Elijah sat at my kitchen table, his legs swinging back and forth, not quite touching the floor. He looked at the pictures on the mantelpiece. He pointed to a photo of me in my army uniform. "Is that you, Grandpa?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "That was a long time ago, before my knees creaked and my hair turned white." "Were you a hero?" he asked with wide eyes. I choked on my coffee. "No, son," I said. "I was just a man doing a job. The real heroes are the ones who keep going when the world tries to stop them." I put him to sleep in the guest room. It used to be Daniel's room. I sat in the rocking chair in the hallway for hours, listening to him breathe. For the first time in 5 years since Maya disappeared, I felt like I had a purpose. I was going to raise this boy. I was going to teach him how to fish. I was going to teach him how to be a man who stands by his word, unlike his father. But I was naive. I thought I was fighting a fair fight. I thought that because I had the truth on my side, I would win. I forgot that in this country, truth is expensive, and I was running on empty pockets. The knock came at 8 in the morning. It was not the frantic banging of trouble. It was a sharp, rhythmic knock of authority. The kind of knock that does not ask for permission to enter, but demands it. I opened the door. Standing on my porch was a woman in a gray suit, holding a clipboard. Behind her stood 2 police officers. Their hands were resting near their belts, not on their guns yet, but close enough to send a message. "Mr. Isaiah Coleman?" the woman asked. Her voice was flat, professional, cold. "I am him," I said, stepping out onto the porch and pulling the door shut behind me. I did not want Elijah to wake up and see this. "My name is Ms. Harper from Child Protective Services. We received a report regarding the welfare of a minor currently in your custody." I felt my stomach drop. A report? It had not even been 24 hours. "What report?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "The boy is my grandson. His mother died yesterday. I am his next of kin." Miss Harper looked at her clipboard. She did not look at me. "According to the report filed this morning, you have a history of violent outbursts and undocumented dementia. The report also states that the home environment is unsanitary and that you keep unsecured firearms within reach of child." I laughed. It was a bitter, angry sound. Violent outbursts? Dementia? These are lies. My house is clean. My gun is locked in a safe in the basement. And my mind is as sharp as a razor. You are being used, lady. Miss Harper finally looked up. Her eyes were tired. She had probably heard every excuse in the book. "Mr. Coleman, we are not here to debate. We are here to execute an emergency removal order. We need to take the child into protective custody pending a full investigation." Over my dead body, I said. The 2 police officers stepped forward. One of them, the taller one with a buzz cut, put his hand on his taser. "Sir, step aside," the officer said. "Do not make this harder than it needs to be." "Harder?" I shouted. My voice cracked. "You are taking a grieving child away from the only family he has left. You are taking him to a system that does not care about him." "Who called you? Was it a woman named Vivian? Tell me." "We cannot disclose the source of the report," Miss Harper said. "Now, please bring the child out or the officers will enter the premises." I stood there, blocking the door. I am a 73-year-old man. My back hurts when it rains. My hands shake when I am tired. But in that moment, I felt like I could fight the whole world. I wanted to swing. I wanted to smash their clipboard and scream at the injustice of it all. But then I heard the door creak open behind me. "Grandpa." I turned around. Elijah was standing there, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He was holding the old teddy bear I had found in the closet. He looked at me, and then he looked at the police officers. He saw the uniforms. He saw the stern faces, and he started to scream. It was not a cry. It was a shriek of pure terror. He thought the bad men had found him. He thought they were going to hurt him like they hurt his mother. He ran to me and wrapped his arms around my leg. "No," he screamed. "No, no, no. Elijah, it is okay," I said, bending down, trying to shield him. Miss Harper stepped forward. "Grab the child," she said to the officers. One of the officers reached out and pulled Elijah off my leg. Elijah kicked and thrashed. He bit the officer's hand. "Let him go." I roared. I grabbed the officer's arm. That was a mistake. In a second, I was shoved back against the wall. My head hit the siding with a crack. The other officer pointed his taser at my chest. "Back off, old man, or you're going to jail for assaulting an officer." I froze. The red laser was dancing on my chest, right over my heart. If I fought, they would arrest me. If I got arrested, I would be in a cell, and I could not help Elijah. I would be a felon. Vivian would win. She wanted me to fight. She wanted me to prove her right. She wanted me to be the angry, violent black man she described in her report. I raised my hands. My whole body was shaking with rage. "It is okay, Elijah." I yelled over his screams as they dragged him down the steps. "It is okay. Go with them. I will come for you. I promise." Elijah reached out his hand toward me. "Grandpa, help me. Grandpa." His voice broke. They shoved him into the back of the sedan. Miss Harper got him beside him. The door slammed shut, severing the connection between us. I stood on the porch, gasping for air. The police officer lowered his taser. "You are lucky we are in a good mood today," the officer said. "Next time you touch a cop, you're going out in a body bag. Get your act together, Pops." They got into their cruiser and drove away. I watched the taillights disappear down the street. The silence that followed was deafening. My house, which had felt so warm just moments ago, now felt like a tomb. I sank down onto the porch steps. I put my head in my hands. This is how they do it. This is how they break you. They do not need to burn a cross on your lawn anymore. They just use the phone. They use the law. They use a system that was built to protect them and crush people like me. Vivian did not just want a child gone. She wanted to humiliate me. She wanted to show me that no matter how hard I tried, I was powerless against her influence. She could snap her fingers and the police would come to do her dirty work. I looked at my hands. They were rough, scarred hands. Hands that had built ships. Hands that had held a dying wife. Hands that had just failed to hold on to a scared little boy. I felt a tear run down my cheek. I wiped it away angrily. Cry later, I told myself. I stood up. My head was throbbing where I hit the wall. Vivian thought this was checkmate. She thought taking Elijah away would break my spirit. She thought I would sit here and drink myself to death or end up in that nursing home she threatened me with. But she forgot one thing. She forgot that you never corner a wounded animal. I went back inside. I walked to the kitchen. The half-eaten grilled cheese sandwich was still on the table. I picked up the plate. I did not throw it. I washed it. I dried it. I put it away. Methodical, calm. I went to the basement. I unlocked the safe. It was dusty. I took out a small metal box. Inside was a stack of cash I had been saving for my funeral. $5,000. It was not enough to hire a high-powered lawyer. It was not enough to bribe a judge, but it was enough to buy information, and it was enough to fuel the truck for a long drive. I am not going to play by their rules anymore. I tried to be the good citizen. I tried to trust the badge. And look where it got me. My grandson is in a cage somewhere, crying my name. I took the cash. I took my old army jacket. Miss Harper said there would be an investigation. She said there would be a hearing. That takes weeks, months. I do not have months. Elijah does not have months. I am going to get him back, and I am not going to ask for permission. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had not called in 20 years. "Hello." A gruff voice answered on the third ring. "Samuel," I said. "It is Zay." "Zay," the voice said, sounding surprised. "I thought you were dead." "Not yet," I said, "but I need a favor. I need you to find someone, a woman named Ms. Harper. I need to know where she lives. I need to know where she took the boy." There was a pause on the line. Then Samuel spoke. "Is this trouble, Zay?" "The kind of trouble you cannot walk away from," I said. "Good," Samuel said. I was getting bored. I hung up the phone. I looked at the empty spot where Elijah had slept. "Hold on, little lion. Grandpa is coming, and I am bringing the storm with me." I did not go back to the empty house. I did not sit and mourn the silence where a child's laughter should have been. I got in my truck and drove straight to the glass tower in the financial district where my son plays at being a master of the universe. The security guard in the lobby tried to stop me. He saw an old black man in a faded army jacket and work boots, and he saw a threat. He was right. I was a threat, but not the kind he could stop a radio call. I walked past him, my eyes fixed on the elevator banks. When he reached for my arm, I gave him a look that I used to give the new hires at the shipyards when they thought they could slack off. It is a look that says I have survived wars and riots and grief. Do not test me today. He let go. I rode the elevator to the 42nd floor. My ears popped as the city shrank beneath me. This was Daniel's world, a world of air conditioning and artificial light, where men destroyed lives with signatures instead of fists. The receptionist, a young woman with a headset, tried to tell me Mr. Coleman was in a meeting. I told her I was the meeting. I pushed open the heavy mahogany doors to his corner office and walked inside. Daniel was not in a meeting. He was sitting behind his massive desk, his head in his hands. He looked up when I slammed the door shut. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who had been running a marathon in his sleep. "Dad," he whispered, "you cannot be here. If she sees you—" I did not let him finish. I marched across the room and slammed my hand down on his desk. The impact made his expensive fountain pens jump. "They took him, Daniel. They came to my house, and they dragged your son away like he was a criminal. And you let it happen. You knew about it." Daniel flinched. He stood up, but he could not look me in the eye. He walked to the window, looking out at the skyline. "I had no choice, Dad," he said, his voice trembling. "You do not understand what she is capable of." "Make me understand." I shouted. "Tell me why a grown man lets his wife murder his ex-girlfriend and kidnap his child. Tell me what she has on you, Daniel, because it must be something worth your soul." Daniel turned around. Tears were streaming down his face. It was pathetic. I wanted to shake him. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to beat him. "She has the ledgers, Dad." The room went silent. The hum of the computer server in the corner seemed to get louder. "What ledgers?" I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Daniel sank back into his chair. 2 years ago, I made a mistake. I gambled on a futures trade that went bad. I lost $3 million of the company's money. I thought I could fix it. I moved some funds around. I cooked the books, just for a few months until I could make it back. I felt a wave of nausea. Embezzlement. My son was a thief. "And Vivian found out," I said. Daniel nodded. "She found the discrepancies. She traced the transfers. She has everything, Dad. Copies of the wire transfers, the fake invoices, my digital signature. She keeps them in a safe deposit box. If I ever try to leave her, if I ever try to fight her, she releases them to the SEC and the FBI. I would go to prison for 20 years. Dad, I would lose everything." I looked at him with disgust. "You are already in prison. Daniel, you built the bars yourself out of greed and fear. So you let her kill Maya to save your own skin." "I did not know she would kill her." Daniel sobbed. "I swear, Vivian said she would just pay her to leave town. She said she would handle it." "And the boy?" I asked, "Did you know about Elijah?" Daniel wiped his nose with a silk handkerchief. "Maya sent me a picture a year ago. Just one. I wanted to see him. Dad, I really did. But Vivian said if I ever acknowledge him, she would destroy me. She said a bastard child would ruin my political prospects." I stared at him. I realized then that the son I raised was gone. This man in the suit was a stranger, a weak, selfish stranger. The door behind me opened. I did not have to turn around and know who it was. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The smell of expensive perfume filled the air. "Touching family reunion," Vivian said. I turned slowly. She was wearing a white business suit, pristine and sharp. She held a blue folder in her hand. She walked into the room like she owned the air we breathed. She probably thought she did. "Get out of my sight, Vivian," I said, "before I forget that I was raised not to hit a woman." She laughed softly. "Such fire, Isaiah. I can see where Daniel gets his temper, even if he lacks your backbone." She walked over the desk and threw the blue folder down in front of me. It landed with a heavy thud. "What is this?" I asked. "A solution," she said. For everyone. I looked at the folder. I did not open it. I waited for her to speak. We have a problem, Isaiah, she said, pacing the room like a predator. You are making noise. You are stirring up dust in a room that needs to remain clean. The incident with CPS this morning was unfortunate, but necessary. You prove you are unfit to care for a child. I am more fit than a father who denies his existence and a stepmother who orders hits on women. I spat back. Vivian ignored me. She tapped the folder with a manicured fingernail. Inside that folder is a contract. A generous offer, really. I listened. I needed to know the enemy's terms. Here's the deal, she said, counting off on her fingers. Number 1, you voluntarily check yourself into the Riverside Assisted Living Facility. It is a very nice place. Top-rated memory care unit. We have already paid for the first year. She was trying to lock me away. She was trying to label me as senile. So anything I said in the future would be dismissed as the ramblings of a crazy old man. Number 2, she continued, you sign over power of attorney for your house to Daniel. We will sell it. The proceeds will go towards your care. She wanted to take my home. The house I bought with 40 years of sweat. The house where Rose died. And number 3, she said, her eyes locking onto mine. You sign a non-disclosure agreement. You agree that you never had a daughter named Maya. You agree that the boy Elijah is a distant relative you are unable to care for. You agree to never speak to the press, the police, or anyone about this family again. And if I sign this, I asked, my voice steady, what happens to Elijah? Vivian smiled. It was the smile of a snake about to strike. Elijah will be taken care of. We have arranged for a lovely adoption agency to handle his case. There's a family in Switzerland, very private, wealthy. He will have a new name, a new life, a new start, far away from here. Switzerland. She meant exile. She meant erasing him. She wanted to send my grandson halfway across the world, so she would never have to look at his face and see Daniel's eyes. And if I refuse, I asked.
Vivian stopped pacing. She leaned against the desk, right next to Daniel, who was staring at his shoes. If you refuse, Isaiah, then the narrative changes. The CPS investigation will find evidence of abuse. Not just neglect, but physical abuse. We have witnesses ready to testify that they saw you hitting the boy. You are lying? I growled. Am I? She asked. Who will they believe? A wealthy philanthropist like me, or a senile old dock worker with a history of anger issues? You will be arrested. You will die in prison. And the boy? Well, the state system is so overcrowded. Kids get lost in the shuffle every day. He might end up in a group home. He might end up on the street. Who knows? She paused, letting the threat hang in the air. Sign the paper, Isaiah. Go to the nursing home. Live out your days in comfort, watching TV and eating pudding. Let's handle the mess. I looked at Daniel. He was shaking his head slightly, mouthing the word please. He wanted me to sign. He wanted the easy way out. He wanted to bury his sins so he could keep his country club membership. I looked at the contract. I reached out and picked it up. Vivian's eyes lit up. She thought she had one. She thought every man had a price and every man had a breaking point. I opened the folder. I looked at the legal jargon, the words that would strip me of my freedom, my home, and my honor. I looked at Vivian. You think you are powerful? I said quietly. You think because you have money and connections, you are a god. But you are just a bully, Vivian. And bullies always forget one thing. I ripped the contract in half. The sound of the tearing paper was loud in the silent office. Vivian's smile vanished. I ripped it again and again until it was just confetti in my hands. I threw the pieces in her face. I would rather die standing than live kneeling before a woman like you, I said. My voice was not a shout. It was a rumble deep in my chest. You could take my house. You can throw me in jail. You can lie about me to the world. But I will never sign your papers. And I will never let you sell that boy like he is a piece of cargo. Vivian's face twisted into a mask of pure fury. You stupid old fool, she hissed. You have just signed your own death warrant. Maybe, I said, but at least I will die a man, which is more than I can say for him. I pointed at Daniel. He flinched as if I had struck him. I turned around and walked to the door. You have 24 hours, Isaiah, Vivian screamed after me. After that, I take the gloves off. I stopped at the door. Keep your gloves on, I said without looking back. You are going to need them to wipe away your tears when I'm done with you. Tell me in the comments. And if you have dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. The next hours were a blur of action. I called in every favor I had. Samuel found old friends from the army, men who knew how to fight dirty. We gathered evidence. We tracked down the facility where they were holding Elijah. We planned a rescue like a military operation. And then came the night of Vivian's charity gala, the grand event where she would stand before cameras and talk about helping children while my grandson sat in a cage. I was not invited, but I showed up anyway. I walked into that ballroom in a borrowed tuxedo that smelled like mothballs. I walked past the security guard who thought I was just a confused old man. I walked to the front of the room where Vivian stood at the podium, bathed in light, smiling her perfect smile. And when she saw me, that smile cracked. I did not need to fight her with fists. I fought her with truth. I played the audio recordings. I showed the evidence of the payments to Maya. I revealed the marriage certificate that proved Daniel was still legally married to Maya when he married Vivian, making his second marriage a fraud. I exposed the lies, the corruption, the murder. The cameras were rolling. The reporters were there. The whole city was watching. Vivian's world crumbled in real time. The police came, but not for me. They came for her. I watched as they handcuffed her. I watched as she screamed and kicked, the Ice Queen melting into a puddle of rage and fear. Daniel was arrested too, for embezzlement, for conspiracy, for being too weak to do the right thing. And in the chaos, Samuel brought Elijah to me. He ran across that ballroom floor and jumped into my arms. "Grandpa," he cried. "You came. I promised you, did I not?" I said, holding him tight. "I always keep my promises." It has been 6 months since that night. 6 months since the sirens and the cameras and the handcuffs. The newspapers moved on to new scandals. The councilwoman resigned in disgrace. The foundation was dissolved, its assets redistributed to real charities. Daniel is serving time in a federal prison. He writes to me every week. I keep the letters in a shoebox in the closet. Maybe one day, when Elijah is a grown man, he can decide if he wants to read them. Vivian got 25 years without the possibility of parole. She is rotting in a cell somewhere, and I hope every time she closes her eyes, she sees Maya's face. As for me, I rebuilt my house on Maple Street. It is stronger now, brick instead of wood, steel-reinforced doors, and a room for Elijah painted whatever color he wants. The rest of the settlement money went to the Maya Jenkins Foundation. We help young mothers who are trying to escape abusive situations. We help women who are being silenced by powerful men. We give them a voice, just like I gave Maya a voice that night. This morning, Elijah and I went fishing at the lake. He caught his first perch. You should have seen his face light up when that fish broke the surface. I look at him and I think about everything we have been through. I lost a son to greed, but I gained a legacy in truth. I'm 74 years old now. My hands are scarred. My heart has been broken and put back together with rivets and steel, but I'm still standing. The sun is high. The fish are biting. And for the first time in a long time, I am not afraid of the dark because I know that when the night comes, I have my own light to guide me home. In the twilight of my life, I learned that blood does not make you family. Loyalty does. I spent years mourning a son who was physically alive but morally dead, only to find salvation in a grandson I never knew existed. We often cling to toxic branches of our family tree, afraid to prune them, thinking the tree will die. But sometimes you have to cut off the rotten parts so the roots can breathe again. I lost a son to greed, but I gained a legacy in truth. A man is not defined by what he builds, but by what he refuses to destroy. This has been my story of how I fought a billion-dollar empire with a wrench and the truth. Thank you for listening. Your support means everything. Until next time, stay strong and never stop fighting for what is right.